Hey, this is Tyler Franklin with Elevated Ag Systems. I'm in Eastern Virginia today doing some deep tillage, no-till ripping on a farm we have in Essex County, Virginia, where we have a severe compaction layer between 6 and 8 inches deep. It's not just a root restricting compaction layer, but it is also a water restricting compaction layer. I'm able to run about 5 miles an hour. I have a 3-shank ripper. I'm running a 6130 John Deere. When I get to tight spots, this thing really starts pulling. And the tight spots in this particular location are wetter areas where water stands, and during harvest or during spraying or during planting, most of the field is okay, but these wetter areas have been compacted the most because they've been too wet. You can hear it. So I've got to slow down in these wetter areas because of the compaction that has occurred. When the field was ready to go on average, these wetter areas were not. And so not only do these wetter areas have that 6 to 8 inch compaction layer, but they're also severely compacted on the surface. And they're typically the highest yielding areas in the field. And so I'll stop for a second and show you what determines that compaction layer or not. I have a Dickie John soil compaction meter that I'll show you. I'm not just ripping for the fun of it. I know that 90% of this field has that compaction layer, and the only way I know that is because I've walked the field. I've put this probe in the ground, and it's very consistent across this whole field. And so this is the Dickie John probe that I use, and I have a 3/4 inch tip, and so when it hits 300, it's a root restricting layer. And so I want to show you what I'm finding out in the field. I see a lot of people that do no-till ripping like this in Eastern Virginia, and one thing I commonly see is they leave the surface so disturbed that they have to run another tillage tool to make it uniform again. You can hardly tell where this thing ran. That's how a no-till ripper should look when you're done. We want to barely disturb the surface. We want to fracture that compaction layer, and so roots and water can run through. So this is one of the areas where water stands. I don't know if I can do this with one hand or not, but you can see that meter. I'm gonna break the probe if I keep going like that. I can't even push it in the ground with one hand. If I get over here where I've ripped, I can go right on down. This is harder to do with one hand than I thought. So I didn't reach 300 here until I was 24 inches down. You can kind of feel it fall. If I get to this area where I haven't ripped, right there, I'm reaching that 300. So that's 7 inches deep right there is where I'm hitting a root restriction layer. It's also keeping water from penetrating. If I walk over here where I have ripped, I can shove it right down to the handle. That's not going to restrict any roots or any water. We utilize this in our no-till systems. We don't want our roots being restricted at all. And in our sandy loam soils, we can typically see that restriction layer 6 to 8 inches deep. And I see a lot of people ripping. They don't know if the field needs it or not. There's a lot of blanket ripping going on. I see people going out there and ripping and disturbing the surface, which is setting them back even further, ripping the wrong time of year. Typically, we want to rip in the fall when it's dry. We get more fracturing. That gives us the winter to recover soil moisture. A lot of times we run out of time. I'm ripping now in the beginning of March on some heavier soils. The ground is just getting dry enough where I'm getting some fracturing, but I'm hoping that I have plenty of moisture between now and planting to replenish this soil, because once air gets in those fractures, it's going to dry the soil back out. So the earlier we do it, the more time we have to replenish that soil moisture. The other reason I want to do it early is because I want these cover crops to be as undisturbed as possible. So this particular field has some cereal rye and hairy vetch, and I'm only disturbing a very minimal amount. So this is where the ripper went. That plant was disturbed, but this hairy vetch plant right here is going to make up the difference. The other important thing about ripping when we have green roots is that we create these fractures in the soil profile, break that hard pan. We need living roots to keep those fractures open. If we go and rip and we don't have anything there to keep it open, over time it's just going to settle back and recreate that compaction layer again. So by ripping green like this early, I'm going to create fractures in the soil, and the cover crop that's here is going to put roots into those fractures and keep it open. And so when this summer's cash crop comes through, this will actually be grain sorghum. The grain sorghum roots are going to follow those same fractures, and they're going to be able to penetrate deep into the soil and get all the moisture that they need. So if we can help in any way, let us know.